The weight of the world rests on whose shoulders? Quite literally, the entire weight. We humans are getting heavier by the day, and it is particularly a problem for the young. How to get all of us healthier? Is fat shaming the answer? You're watching Roundtable with me, David Foster. The dramatic rise in cases of type 2 diabetes, often associated with obesity, highlights a growing problem, growing bigger. The problem is that health concerns and fashion fads don't sit easily together. The difficulty, therefore, is in convincing people that you don't just need to lose weight to look good, you need to do it perhaps to stay alive.
Obesity. It's a global epidemic. Fast food, sedentary lifestyles and a lack of exercise are leading to adults and children being overweight.
Some children are having 500 calories a day more than they need. On average, adults are having 200 to 300 calories a day more than they need. That's why we have an obesity problem in this country.
The stigma around this problem can lead to what's become known as fat shaming. Is fat a dirty word, or does society need to face up to the problem? "58% of women and 68% of men in England are overweight or obese. Over 1 in 5 children aged 4 to 5 are obese, and 1 in 3 10 to 11-year-olds are considered overweight. The US is still the fattest country in the world, followed closely by Mexico. The UK is the 6th.
What is the biggest preventable cause of cancer after smoking?
Earlier this year, cancer research was accused of fat shaming after it put out a campaign that explicitly linked obesity to cancer. The charity defended its actions and said it was based on facts. With such high levels of obesity, is calling someone fat shaming, or is it just calling it what it is? Does it help them lose weight, or are there better ways to tackle the problem? The latest edition of Cosmopolitan magazine featured a plus-sized model, and there is a movement to show a more positive body image. But does it actually promote obesity?
In my view, they are being paid to model something, usually an item of clothing, which is destined for somebody who is that large. They have to be large themselves in order for that to have any credibility. I cannot, however, entertain any premise that they are responsible for bringing about overweight in the population in this country.
Nazia Khatoon is a personal trainer. She takes on clients, helps them lose weight, but also teaches them to love their bodies.
I think fat shaming shouldn't be used so much, but I think there's ways of going around it as well, telling somebody in a nice way with compassion. So, we've got to be careful in a way, but without feeling like we are doing them a favor by sugarcoating whatever the situation is at hand as well. I do believe obesity has been normalized in our society with this whole thing that with the plus model size and the mannequins and everything. It's amazing that people can embrace that, but we're also on a danger line of promoting obesity instead of informing people in the society of the correct way of going about being healthy as well.
Obesity is putting added strain on health services. From 2015 to 2016, there were 525,000 admissions in NHS hospitals where obesity was recorded as a factor. The National Health Service estimates that $7.8 billion was spent on overweight and obesity-related ill health between 2014 to 2015. Can fat shaming work to get people to change, or is it just a cruel and derogatory taunt that only causes more suffering?
And I'm very pleased to say that joining us via Skype from Switzerland, we have Kirsten Davies, a nutritionist, body confidence coach and founder of what is called the Food Remedy. Kirsten will tell us what that is in the studio. Steve Miller, a weight loss motivator, and we'll try and find out what motivation is needed. Tam Fry is with us. He leads the National Obesity Forum. And Lorna Roberts is a plus-size model, and proud to call yourself that, Lorna. So let me bring you all in on this, but with a personal story from Lorna at the very start. You say you were bullied because of your size or fat shamed?
When I first started modelling, it was quite some time ago, so it was a slightly different situation. We didn't have the social media that we have now. But when it did start to come in, certain things that I had done, I did get comments posted underneath it. And when I was showing a friend a video that I had done, I initially started looking at a couple of nice comments going, you know, what a great video, love the song, whatever. And then it kind of descended into some quite abusive messages along the lines of as if they'd fancy her, you know, fat so-and-so. And it kind of, I was quite new to the modelling at that point, and, well, not new, but I didn't have the confidence and the kind of thick skin that I have now. But you kind of learn that if you put yourself in the social forum as a role model or in any kind of job, you do make yourself a very easy target, especially online, with trolls and, you know, keyboard warriors.
But it is a form of bullying. Do you know
yes, absolutely.
And you, Steve, are possibly one of the bullies because you've said
No,
fat shaming is not inappropriate.
No, my voice will be louder than yours. You will not call me a bully. That's not true. What I'm saying is there are two types of fat shaming. Number one is not constructive. Let me explain what that is. That is an example of not constructive fat shaming, okay? I would never, ever endorse people writing that. Let me finish. And secondly, what I'm saying with constructive fat shaming is something like cancer research would agree with me on, which is where we put it out there to say being too fat can lead to cancer. But my goodness, they got scolded for that. And I think it's going too far. We are in danger of normalizing fat. And we need to bring back the balance and get a grip with these two words, fat shaming.
Yeah, but going back to that Cancer UK thing, I'll come to you in a minute, Kirsten, but let's go to the Cancer UK thing. There's a GP in London called Jonathan Tomlinson, asked to write about this. He said if their campaign are intended simply to state a fact, you're fat and you're going to die from cancer, but not to provoke action, then it will have achieved absolutely nothing. This just brings shame on people.
I think it's absolute nonsense. I mean, what cancer research is saying is if you're too fat, you're putting yourself at significant risk of cancer. What would we like to do? Not give the warnings out? Not tell people and just let them die of cancer? Not in my world. No way.
But there's ways to do it.
How would you do it then?
Okay, well, if the advert in question, which I believe is a cigarette packet with French fries in it, I believe, that particular advert, if people are finding it offensive and walking past it and feeling insulted, is it accomplishing the message? Is there not a more supportive and not softer way, because I know you guys don't like the soft approach, you like the hardcore bang it in your face approach.
Tam, National Obesity Forum, the aim of which is presumably to help people lead healthier lives. How do you go about that without fat shaming?
Well, let me put you straight on the aim. The aim of the forum is now basically to tell government that it's really got to do something about the obesity problem which we have, because the not doing anything about it is going to lead to absolute catastrophe. You talked about cancer, you talked about diabetes and all the other comorbidities, which are far worse than simple obesity itself. And the bottom line is a loss to the exchequer of £24 billion a year. That is unsustainable.
Because you have to treat the health problems
Because you have to
with.
treat the health problems. Obesity by itself is something like $6 million cost a year. But all the other things put together is huge. And the point of it, the forum is to be in total disbelief that the government can allow this problem to continue without the measures which are necessary.
Is there not a danger, perhaps, that somebody who's just a little bit overweight, because of everything we're hearing these days, is going to think they are perhaps morbidly obese and are going to feel shame about the situation they're in, when in fact you can be slightly overweight, fat and healthy?
You can indeed, and I'm an example of that. I'm older, I'm a little overweight, and that's okay for me. But the problem is that if you allow people to have the impression that it doesn't really matter, they're going to come against the buffers at some stage of their life. I mean, we're talking about children today, and there are children now who...
The figures are what? It's extraordinary, isn't it?
The figures
in the UK.
are, in the simplicity, 11-year-olds, 33% of our 11-year-olds are either overweight or obese. And that's even worse when you go down to the 4-year-olds, because 25% of them are overweight and obese.
No such thing as puppy fat then?
There is puppy fat, but the puppy fat goes in the first 2 years of life, but then it builds up again. And it's when it builds up that it
But
causes the problem. at the
I
age
think
of
the
4.
message we have to give out, because to say
I'd also like to say I've worked for Public Health Wales and worked for children who are above a healthy weight. Even those children as young as 4 do not respond positively to shame. Shame is damaging from the inside. It really damages someone's soul. So you can
Yep.
help someone in an encouraging way, in a positive way, and help them accept where they are, even when they're making about the best change.
But according to
shame
you,
some-
of course, we wouldn't even tell children about the dangers of being too fat or too thin. You sound like you just want it one way, where you never talk about the dangers of obesity, you never talk about the dangers of
Absolutely
fat.
not.
And what
No,
you're
the
saying
two
right
messages-
now
no.
is absolutely
You know,
the wrong
there's
message.
two issues, yeah. Two issues. Obesity is a very real problem, as are loads of diet.
What do we do about it?
What do? Is we help people, we educate them. People are massively confused about all the conflicting information out there.
So
One
much
day
conflicting
eggs,
information.
the next day eggs are
Yeah,
bad.
this is shaming children.
Absolutely,
isn't it? And
absolutely.
it's totally wrong.
If you want to tackle the childhood obesity, I've spoken to a couple of family members who are teachers over the weekend, and a lot of it is more to do with what they're eating, how they're eating. It's one thing to turn around and say to a child, you know, teach them about health, educate them about food, vitamins, nutrition. You don't have to do that by shaming them in any way, shape
What's
or
this
form.
shaming? You keep saying you don't have to shame them. Define shaming for
If
me.
you sit there and tell a child that they're fat,
I wouldn't do that.
well, you just said
No, no,
you
no, no,
need
no.
to tell them about obesity and about everything else.
I absolutely do. I think parents have a responsibility to educate their children, as you're saying, about the dangers of being too fat. And I am going to use the word fat. I think children are quite resilient, as well as being too thin.
Really?
And I think that is
Really?
important.
You think
I'll tell you
children
one
are
thing.
super resilient?
I'll tell you one thing.
Really?
The problem we have, especially in this country, is there are great parents out there who do a great job. There's a lot of lazy parents out there as well who can't be bothered, who should think before they bring it.
Okay.
I'm going
With
to,
the-
in a minute. Tam, lazy parents. Can you categorise what groups they come from? Is it generally the people who are less well off?
Yes. The problem that we have is normally found in the lower area of the economic scale. They are less educated. They have less disposable income to buy good food.
But good food could be cheap. You know, you go and buy a carrot, you go and buy a cauliflower. It's not expensive.
Yeah, but then.
But also, you could buy a pizza for
part
a
of that
pound.
problem-
Yeah.
Just a moment.
That
Part
would
of that
feed two
problem
children.
One second, Kirsten.
is that we have a substantial number of people in this country who cannot cook, who cannot boil an egg. That is as a result of years and years of neglect of teaching
think
in
that's
schools.
laziness if you don't know how to do
under
it.
the Thatcher years, where she got rid of domestic science, she got rid of home economics, and you have a lot of people now who are dependent upon ready-made food and fast food in order to eat. And children have to eat, and so they're given this because parents can't prepare the food.
But
for
I
them.
would say the parents are
And
idiotic
food banks.
to put themselves in that situation. Surely you
indeed-
can learn how to do something that's nutritious. You know,
Yeah,
like boil up a
obviously,
carrot.
and I'm sure the charming lady in Switzerland, when she's doing her work, will actually try to educate people about preparing food.
The food remedy, is that what that's about, Kirsten?
The food remedy works with people in mind, body, and soul. So it's how you feed your mind, the thoughts that you're saying to yourself, the beliefs and the perceptions that you have, how you nourish your body. So what your body responds to, like what food does to the inside, because food is just so much more than calories in versus calories out. It's information for our DNA. It helps control our immunity, our stress levels, our hormones, everything like that. So it's about helping people understand how they eat, what to eat, and how they can prepare food that is healthy, fast, and nutritious, because it is possible. But people don't have those tools anymore because there's so much conflicted information out there. And it's a shame because you have one person saying one thing, then the NHS recommending another. Everybody needs to work together, bring about change that can be positive.
But is it that people aren't told, or is it that people aren't listening?
I think it's
you
people
asking me
aren't
that?
given the
Yeah,
right
I think what we have to realise is, and I get up every day helping fat people lose weight, okay? Every single day. 90+% know exactly what they should eat to be slim. We're treating people like they're thick. They know what to eat. Someone said to me, a 21-stone lady said to me the other day, do you know what, Steve? I can't understand it why all this. I just go onto Google and put what to eat to be slim. I know what to eat.
But
it's
that's
the
not true,
Let me
because
finish. It's the mindset and motivation that's missing. And I'm sorry, sometimes we have to give a bit of tough love. And the problem is nowadays, if you give a bit of tough love, like cancer research did, you're called a fat shamer. The world's gone mad.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't quite see the motivation that I would get from listening to you. All I hear is, you know, haranguing at the moment.
Well, I think you should look at my results online and then you'd see the results that I deliver.
So what motivation do you give people?
Well, it depends on the individual.
Keep eating that ice cream, you're going to die?
Well, no, it would be different. It depends on the individual. There are two types of motivation. There's the wonderful motivation to say how your life will change, which is very aspirational. There is the other side of motivation that would say, we've got to sort this because you might have cancer, you might get dementia, you might have a stroke, you might have type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
That is not fat shaming.
Okay, it might not be fat shaming, but do you think those people don't know that? If you're a larger person, I've been with friends and people have walked up to them and said, love, should you really be eating that? If you're having that happen,
What?
not
Complete strangers?
Yeah, complete strangers. And I've had very, very, very slim friends who people have got up to and said, oh, you should eat something, love. It's on both sides.
And you don't think they're doing that out of kindness, do
Oh,
you?
please,
Yeah.
no. They're doing it to make themselves feel better. Maybe they're a bit insecure and it makes them to feel better to push people down. Either way is not acceptable whatsoever. But you touched on something quite interesting, as did you earlier when you were talking about the government and their responsibilities. Now, with the sugar tax coming out, for example, there's so much else in the food industry. Why does the government seem almost scared to combat what is allowed to go in our food? You've got companies that hire armies of scientists, to quote The Guardian, if I'm allowed to do that, that literally design food to trick us to override the willpower, yeah, and then you have advertisers that employ psychologists to make it as appealing, to literally try and squash the willpower that you do have. So even if you are on a very, very limited budget, maybe, you know, you're a single income family, you've got 30, 40 quid a week to feed your 3 kids or your 2 kids, what do you feed them for 30 quid?
Why are a lot of those people slim then? I could introduce you to a lot of people who are on very low incomes, who may be watching this, who are actually probably shouting at the screen saying, how dare you patronise
I'm
me?
not saying that
How dare
everyone,
you
but
patronise-
we're
because
talking
we're
about
poor,
the obese.
We're going to be fat.
We're
Let's
talking
not-
about the obese.
Guys, this is
For
not a shouting
example.
match. I don't want it to be a shouting match.
No.
And I would like Tam to have his fair
But we're
share of
going
time.
over you're missing the point of what I said, what I was trying to say before I got interjected, is that the food companies and how they're doing and designing the food seems to be ignored. We've got the sugar tax on the drinks. Why is nobody tackling the food companies? We've all mentioned, you mentioned the ready meals and what they're full of.
Part of the answer, it's only part of the answer, is food. And for the last 30, 40 years, the food industry has been allowed to go its own way. And its own way is to make its food more and more attractive by putting in more and more sugar and everything else like that. In
Which is
1998, the government, the Labour government at that time, which had a huge majority and could have done anything it wanted to do, was presented with a plan for curing obesity, if you will. And the food industry clobbered it, and it went on the shelf, never to be seen again.
Quite literally.
Quite literally. The Professor James, who you will know, wrote the plan, and he was called to a meeting with 12 food barons, and the food barons said very simply, get rid of that document, or we will leave the country, we will take our manufacturing woes. And the government fell for it. And it is only the sugar levy which has actually broken the mold. And the thing about the sugar levy is that before even it was put on the books, it was a success. Because what happened was that George Osborne got up at the budget and said, I am worried to death about childhood obesity. I am going to impose a levy, and I'm going to impose it on industry. And what industry did then was call an urgent meeting, sit around the board table, and industry said to itself, Do we really want to pay money to the government? No. We will take the sugar out of our fizzy drinks. And in the 2 years which the industry was given to reformulate, it got rid of 95% of the sugar. And now we have got...
It's cutting in.
Pardon me?
But sadly, that's been replaced by artificial sweeteners, all things that aren't natural to us. I mean, yes, it has many benefits, and I'm sorry, I just wanted to say, what have they replaced it with?
No, let's get into the artificial sweetening at the moment. I totally understand.
This programme is about obesity, and artificial sweeteners, for whatever reason, are less likely to make you obese than sugar.
No, that's not true. That's not true at all.
Well,
it can
we
our
can
body
have another conversation about that. But let me go on with the sugar levy, because what happened with the sugar levy is that industry was given time to reformulate. And a lady in Switzerland will know that. Everybody knows that it does take time to reformulate. It was a success. And what we are going to see in the United Kingdom within only a few years is more and more activity in controlling the industry.
Yeah. Lorna thinks it didn't work, and you're going to tell me why, but I want to ask you a question after that about social media.
All right. I have a question regarding the sugar levy. For example, the shop close to me has just put 30p on everything.
Yep.
Water, diet drinks, everything. How is the sugar tax being monitored? Where does that money go? Does it just go straight to the government, or do they call it a sugar tax, but it's technically not a tax? It just allows the retailers to add...
Can we leave that question out there? I think it's a point rather than it's a rhetorical question, if you like.
Well, no, it's not.
We haven't got time to go into it in that much detail. Let's talk about the pressures on people through fat shaming. You talked about you being trolled because of the music video that you did. How do you stop something like that?
Education. You teach children, and this is the only way you're going to do it, you teach children about what not to say when they are confronted with somebody who they would like, because it'll make them feel better to say you are a fatty. That is where the education comes in, and we have never, ever had that. So it needs a total shift in our attitude towards thin people, towards fat people.
I think it needs to go further than that, because there's laws against discriminating against race, religion, sexual orientation, every field, you know, lots of fields you can imagine. Fat discrimination, no.
There's something you can do about it if you're too fat. I used to be really fat, and I was fat because I was lazy, and and I'm also gay. I can't do anything about being gay, but I can do something about being too fat.
But there's lots of different reasons that people are...
You need to put those books back on the shelf, because this argument just doesn't hold up. There is always something. You see, the positive message we need to be giving out there to the public that are struggling is that there is aspiration, because there's always something you can do to lose weight and manage it.
Well,
if you want to,
people could be losing weight and getting there.
Can I just ask you, I was talking about social media. Kirsten, just for a moment, please. Talking about social media. Do you ever wonder whether the message you're getting out there could actually be damaging some vulnerable people?
When I put messages such as, give me an example of what I put out there.
No, I'm just saying.
I've got one. Tell a friend they're fat day. That was one of your ideas.
No, it wasn't called that, actually.
Oh, that was the title.
Warn a friend they're fat day.
Okay, warn a friend they're fat day.
I commissioned that day.
Because I'm sure they don't know at all.
I stand by that day. I got great feedback from many fat people, not slim people who are these
do you think his process works?
They loved it.
So Tam is saying, I think he's quite appalled at some of the things you're saying.
Yeah, I'm very appalled. I have nothing to do, just a moment. I have nothing to do with social media. Social media actually has gone out of the window and is being used in entirely the wrong way. And it's the
Not
fact...
always. Some of it's very positive.
I said,
but
that's another issue. Yeah. But there is more bad feeling, more stigmatization, which comes out of social media, Facebook, whatever it might be, than I ever knew. Now, I have the beat on all of you because I'm very old. We didn't have social media when I was your age, and we had a much better attitude towards fatness than we do now.
I tell people on social media they're too gorgeous to be fat. I'm not changing that. Is
That's
that
a backhanded
is
comment.
that
Doesn't that
fat
sound,
shaming?
isn't that a little bit patronising?
No. They
It
are
is a
too
little
good.
bit patronising.
What do you want? If, according to you, if
Oh,
you're
you're
happy and you're
too-
fat, clap your hands.
Now,
That's what you're
oh,
saying.
that's
If
super,
you're happy
super,
and you're fat,
super
clap your hands.
patronising and
Very quickly,
condescending.
Can't be
We've got about a
gorgeous
minute
and
left.
overweight.
Is that all we've got?
Do you not think it's patronising for you to sit there and effectively tell Lorna she needs to lose weight?
I didn't.
Effectively,
No,
you
I
are.
didn't. I said I put on social media you're too gorgeous to be fat.
But that's still an insult and it's still patronising and condescending.
Well, I say get over it. Because fat kills. Fat causes
So
cancer,
does bullying
stroke,
and so does
diabetes.
fat shaming.
I do
I
not
have emails
fat
from
shame.
people.
No. You are wrong, you see,
But
to
the
say
way- the
Steve
terminology-
Hang on.
I do not fat
She's
shame.
had emails from people who what? Very quickly.
Who tell me that they're on the verge of suicide, they're being bullied, they're at the end of their
And
tether,
that's
they don't
terrible.
know what
Okay,
to do.
guys,
terrible. Go to the
guys.
cancer wards, though,
When I
darling.
told you we'd only got a minute left, I was lying. We've got no time left.
Oh, sorry.
So it's gone awfully quickly. Kirsten Ingolstadt, thank you very much indeed. Lorna, Steve, Tam, thank you. Good luck with all of the work you do. And then let's just hope that we end up with not just perhaps a thinner world, but a kinder world too. I don't know whether that's going to be the case. You've been watching Roundtable. I'm David Foster from me and the team. Thank you for watching. We hope to have your company next time. Bye-bye.